In this episode, we bring awareness to an insanely huge problem that I don't think is talked about as much. And but on a positive note, we do talk about how we can actually solve it.
Bitcoin is the modern version of gold.
Bitcoin is incredibly popular.
People have made fortunes out of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin went through the roof.
You think this is a currency?
Hold on a minute. If you know everything about blockchain and the industries that it's implemented in, which means you do realize that it's not merely Bitcoin and crypto, then this show is not for you. So thank you. Have a good day. However, if you do not know everything about blockchain and those industries, then put your headphones on. My name is Maurik, and by no means am I an expert in either blockchain or those industries, but I do interview people who are in this show. Welcome to What the Fork.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of What the Fork. I'm Maurik, your host. I'm here with a man who is tackling a rather big problem, which is why I think this is going to be an exciting interview, because the problem's definitely not exciting. What's exciting is the possibility of solving it with blockchain. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, this is Tey. Tey, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can you give us just a couple minutes intro of who you are and what you do?
My name is Tey, and I'm the Invisible Man. I know that you can see me here today. Actually, it's written on my driving license that I'm born in unknown. In fact, I know where I was born. I was born in Kuwait, and during the Gulf War, the birth registries got destroyed. And people without a birth certificate are named or are called invisible people. That's why I am the Invisible Man. The problem is not only with me. We have, on a global scale, 290 million children under the age of 5 who do not have a birth certificate at birth.
290 million.
290 million. The numbers were 260 million when we started Tykn, which was around end of 2016.
Okay.
Today we have 290 million. And it's ironic because one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the UN SDGs, goal 16.9, is to reach in 2030 a world where we have 0 invisible children. So we see the scale of the problem. I lived the scale of the problem, although I say always that I'm blessed to have a birth certificate issued at the age of 5 and lost it in the Gulf War. But a certain moment in my life made me live as the Invisible Man. So literally I was invisible.
Can you tell us about that? Can you tell us about your story?
So it was September 24, 2014, when the day that I slept on the ground floor of the immigration center, Apple, the detention immigration center. 23 September 2014, I was sleeping at home. 24 September 2014, I'm sleeping in a detention center. And the reason is my work permit expired and I couldn't renew it. So the only chance for me to stay in the Netherlands was to apply for asylum. Now, why asylum? Because my father is Syrian, I carry the Syrian nationality. 2014 was the climax of the Syrian war, and I could not go back to Lebanon, where I live, or to Syria, where my passport and my home country is. So, from 2014 till 2016, I spent them in 5 refugee camps. I moved between 5 refugee camps, and I felt firsthand, I validated firsthand what it is to live like an invisible person, what it is to live like an invisible child, and what does it mean? What does it affect your life? Whether it's lack of access to education, lack of access to healthcare, and most importantly, lack to access for money. And those barriers gave me the superpowers to break them using an emerging technology like Bitcoin and blockchain.
So, okay. So does do a lot of these problems arise for refugees because they don't have those certificates which prove their identity, right? And how does okay, let's talk about that solution, because if you're a refugee and you come to a new country, but there's no ways that you had your documents with you because of so many different reasons, how can you solve that problem? I mean, let's talk about currently. Is there currently a way of you solving that problem?
Well, what we are solving here actually is not how refugees identify themselves when they arrive into new countries. Let's take it a step back. When we say the word refugee, we have a minimum of 3 categories that we are looking at. Refugees who are arriving into what we call countries that are highly developed, like Netherlands, like Norway, like Sweden, where the refugee asylum process is taken care by the government itself. The government is hosting those refugees. We move into the second category, which is the refugee camp is hosted together with an international NGO like UNHCR. And here we can give an example about Jordan. So in Jordan, UNHCR and the government collaborate on running the refugee camp. And example number 3, or category number 3, is where refugee camps have absolutely no government interference and is totally run by international NGOs like UNHCR and Red Cross. We can give an example maybe in Somalia. So the refugee camps in Somalia, they are mainly run by international NGOs. Now, I believe also there's a category number 4, which people don't talk about, are the camps that are not run by NGOs, are not run by the governments. People simply taking a piece of land and putting a tent and living there. And this happens in Lebanon, where parts of Bekaa Valley, for example, where farmers own land, refugees come to this land, they put a tent and they stay in it. So we're not helping people in category number 4. We're not helping people in category number 3. We're mostly looking at similar situations where camps are organized. They are run by the government in collaboration with the international NGO. There is a proper due diligence process done on the refugees who are asking asylum, and now those refugees have a piece of paper.
Okay.
I can show you later the piece of paper that identified me. This identification process is done in collaboration with the government, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
So in the Netherlands, IND, or the immigration services here, they go through a deep due diligence process on every single refugee that have applied asylum in the Netherlands. And the first document that you get is a piece of paper that has the camp number on it, that has your number as a refugee, where you're coming from, your age, your sex, and other details like first name and last name. The problem is when you're moving between 5 camps, this paper needs to be reissued every single time. If you lose that paper, you have to stand in line and request a new one. But for me, most importantly is the data on that paper is valuable, because it's telling about you as a human being, and it doesn't tell about your skills. It doesn't tell about your potential. It doesn't tell about how good you are or how skilled you are in certain areas.
Yeah.
So my roommate in the camp, for example, in one of the camps, he was a heart surgeon. And blindfoldedly in Aleppo, under the skies of explosions and in the dark, underground in hospitals, he was able to perform surgeries on wounded people.
Okay.
So today, this guy is shelving bottles in Albertine or in a supermarket. Losing your academic credentials, losing your land title, losing your birth certificate will put you in a much more frustrating situation. You're waiting for your procedures to come, you're waiting for an answer from immigration services to tell you whether you can stay or you cannot. Yeah. Research says that on average, a refugee spends 5 years in a refugee camp. That's the average number of years that a refugee spends in a camp. Some of them even stay double that period. What are people doing there? We don't know. Well, actually, I know because I lived there.
Yeah.
Basically, nothing. Yeah. And they have the potential to do something. They have the potential to be linked to the largest economy on earth, which is the internet. They have the potential to be linked to the most popular place on earth, which is the internet. And here is my personal belief that if we have a type of tool that assess and includes such type of vulnerable populations and people into a system where we can assess their skills, where we can make use and benefit from the experiences that they are bringing here, whether it is in being giving experience lessons in helping a farmer, for example, increase his crop. Ladies who can sew clothes and then make designs out of old jeans and old suits, and so there is a craft that we can take out of people. There is economic value that we can unlock in people, and on a global scale in refugee camps, the next cure to AIDS can be there, the next cure to cancer can be there, the next genetic proof piece of corn can be there. There is a huge potential that we can unlock in human beings even if they are in refugee camps. To go back to the story, because this data is on paper, we cannot share it, we cannot verify it, and people are losing an access to an opportunity. And sometimes in life, all what you need is an opportunity to flip things around. So the basic opportunity that I see by making this type of paper in a digital credential is a micro loan, or simply a saving account, or a credit line from a bank, from a financial institution. That's what I see as the low-hanging fruit today when we change the status of a refugee ID from a paper certificate into a digital certificate. But digital is not enough. Digital is not enough, and the proof, we all know what happened with Facebook and with the Cambridge Analytica and the whole leaks.
They're vulnerable.
Exactly.
As well.
So we believe that digital identities need to be built on standards, need to be built on at least 3 principles: being portable, that you can carry it around you all the time; being private, your data is under your control and you decide with whom to share it; and being secure. That means your data will not be leaked tomorrow. Why? Because as a European citizen, if your data gets leaked through a hotel guest list, simply you can go to the municipality, issue a new passport, a new credit card from your bank, and your life goes on. But if a refugee camp leaks the details of the people inside it, this group can be targeted, and it means life or death for them. So yes, we are, or I am, a true believer in the self-sovereign identity concept, yet I believe the impact that we need to create on people's lives cannot wait for the self-sovereign identity principles to be on a global standard, to be adopted by communities and by global governments. The impact needs to happen yesterday, because climate change, shifting economic powers will make more people vulnerable. And today, Venezuela is a live example in our memories, is a fresh example. If people forgot what happened in Syria 9 years ago, look at Venezuela today. Potentially 10 million people are going to walk from Venezuela to neighboring countries and ask for asylum or a safe place to stay. How are we going to help those people? And how are we going to make sure that their needs will be met if we don't know anything about them? If they carry if we're going to issue paper documents again for them. Yeah. So for global efforts, for global collaborations, for multi-NGO collaborations on a specific cause, digital is the way to go through. We're almost in 2020. But as I always say, digital is not enough. Identities need to be portable, private, and secure.
You're definitely diving into it already yourself, which is like we've talked about all of these issues, and we've talked about the fact that the only way that you can carry something with you, no matter the conditions and no matter what situations you go through, is through digital. However, removing the vulnerability of that data digitally also is an essential part to creating this safe ecosystem of data, and not just data, of very important data. So how can we add those extra principles that we need, like making the data secure, like making.
Here we can talk about what distributed ledger technology, or what we know as DLT, can mean to the solution. It is a very small part of the solution. It is not the core solution.
Yeah. For the people who don't know, this is blockchain distributed.
Commercially, for search engine optimizations and for marketing purposes, it's called blockchain technology. I'm trying to be one of the voices to separate DLT from blockchain for many reasons, and hopefully in future episodes we can talk about that. But I stick to the keywords and the synonyms of DLT being distributed ledger technology, because we need a trust factor here. We need to know who is issuing this ID, and we need to know whether we can trust that issuing party, yes or no. And by being in a distributed ledger methodology on registering trust, it helps us cross that bridge between understanding who wrote to the ledger and what is being said and what's being backed up on the identity side. So let's give an example. If I am in a certain African country and I'm living here in the Netherlands, and I'm looking at the ID that's coming from Somalia, for example, and let's also take it a step back. Supposedly, I represent a telecom company, and supposedly I am issuing SIM cards for people living in my geography. If I
in Somalia, you're there.
Yeah. So if I am a telecom provider and I'm issuing SIM cards, and if I'm a telecom provider and I'm selling SIM cards. When I'm selling the SIM cards to retailers, the retailer today, by law, in 120 countries around the world, including Lebanon, Turkey, which host large number of refugees, they are forced to register the identity of the owner of the SIM card. Okay? So if I'm a refugee in Lebanon or Turkey and I'm buying a SIM card, I have to have a legal identity with me. And
you cannot get it without
I cannot get it without an identity. And today that's a fact in Turkey and in Lebanon and in 120 countries around the world. So if I don't have a legal identity and I am a refugee, how I'm going to get a SIM card? And the SIM card is my first gateway for communication. Is my first gateway for inclusion. But imagine that I'm a refugee in one of those two countries, Lebanon or Turkey, and I have a digital identity on my smartphone or on my card. I have a QR code on my piece of paper. I have a way to ask the retailer to scan my QR code and access the data behind it. So imagine I am a refugee in Lebanon or Turkey, and today I want to buy a SIM card. If I don't have a legal identity, then I cannot buy the SIM card. And that is the law today.
Yeah.
That is the law where know your customer or KYC is applied in 120 countries around the world to purchasing a SIM card. And they're doing that law in a step to regulate mobile money. So if I give them a passport from Somalia or Syria, the SIM card retailer will not accept that type of identity. They need a strong legal proof of who I am and an identity that is issued by parties that they trust. So if my passport is coming from the Netherlands, from the US, from Jordan, from Dubai, it's fine. That means we're gonna exclude a large number of people because simply they do not have a legal identity with them. My proposal is, if these international NGOs that are hosting refugees and that are helping refugees can give an identity in a form, even if it's on a piece of paper with a QR code, the retailer can scan the QR code and look at the details of this person, and they can see that these details have been issued by a trusted provider, that they have been signed by a trusted provider, and that the signature has not been tampered with. For that thing to happen, and especially that the signature has not been tampered with, you need a type of distributed truth. You need a single source of truth. And here where DLTs, or what you call them a blockchain, come to play. So I always give the example of a toilet paper. If I get it signed by, who's your public figure? Give me a name of public figure.
Like Barack Obama.
If this piece of toilet paper is signed by Barack Obama, does it have value? It's signed by Barack Obama. So I can put it in a frame and I can sell it in an auction maybe in 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah.
But the condition on that toilet paper to have value is that on a global scale, we are able to verify that this is the signature of Barack Obama. And that's what identities are. They're a piece of paper signed by a verified authority. Whether it's a stamp, whether it's a shape of the signature or the thickness of the ink or of the pen, that's what IND does. They take our documents and their passports and they put them under a deep due diligence, a deep analytics, and they analyze whether this is a fake document or an original document by following the international procedures of issuing a passport.
Yeah.
We can move into the digital world in the similar way, where we have a single source of truth behind the signatures, and those signatures are validating and verifying information of other people. Can it be misused? Of course it can be misused. And being misused by saying, can we issue fake IDs? Can we sign on fake IDs? And can we sign on fake data? Yes, you can. But it puts your reputation and responsibility on the line, because once people discover that this signature has been involved with 10, 20, 100,000 fake IDs, then the collective...
you can hold that person accountable.
Exactly. The collective society can get that person accountable, and we can revoke his power or his signature.
So just to clarify a little bit on what this DLT or distributed ledger technology or blockchain allows us to do in this case is because currently, or let's say, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, when there was no such technology, if something was digital, you could not have a specific signature assigned to it. You could not protect that data and have it be there forever. But what this DLT allows you to do is that data that's put in there, which in this case could be identity data, keeps it there and makes sure that cannot be changed, and makes sure that digital signature is connected to that specific person.
Yeah, I would say it's the identity data of the organization and not the person, because we truly believe that personal identifying information must never be on the chain, must never be on the ledger. Only the signature that represents that NGO or that organization is registered on the...
Why is that?
Why is that? Because in the future, your personal identifying information can identify you as a person, and we can commit persecutions against certain age range, certain religions, or certain races. And we don't want that. We don't want to create or make it easier for bad actors to commit the next genocide against certain minorities and communities. So, and that's why your privacy matters.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we are against what happened with Cambridge Analytica and the Facebook.
Yeah.
And now, what we are hearing from the public is we want the identities to be on blockchain, and that's totally wrong. That is absolutely not what we mean when we want to make the marriage between a digital identity and a distributed ledger technology. This marriage is made to protect the signatures of organizations involved in issuing an identity or verifying an identity. It involves the signatures of identity providers and not identity owners themselves. The identity owner needs his identity data to be offline, to be in his control on his own device and not with a third party. But I can prove that my piece of data is valid, verified, and valuable because it has a signature behind it.
Of a trusted.
Exactly, and that signature, we can go back and look at the ledger and see, well, is it a trusted signature? Yes or no? That's up to you to decide. But most importantly, has it been tampered with? Yes or no? That is the proof of the distributed ledger.
And is this conversation being had in the big players, so to speak? So countries, governments, United Nations, are they looking at this possibility yet, or?
I think they are. They are not looking at it. They're smelling it now. You know, okay. Their senses are awakened by the smells of scandals and leaks and data breaches that are happening on a daily basis. But we're very far from getting the reality.
Yeah, making it actually happen.
Today, yeah. We're very far from making it actually happen indeed. In my opinion, it is not a technology problem. It is an awareness problem. It's an education problem. It's a very sensitive topic. We're talking about the IDs of human beings, and we're talking about the IDs of sensitive data.
Yeah,
you know,
hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, things cannot go wrong. There's no place for error. We cannot say, oh, sorry, we did a mistake.
Yeah,
you know, you have to be 100%. This is similar to launching a rocket in space. You have one chance of doing it, and you have to get it right. So that's why you need to invest millions of euros in it.
What is Tykn currently doing? Are you trying to develop the technology, or are you more trying to speak to the parties that could be involved and having a...
At Tykn today, we're pursuing both things at the same time. I don't think that you can work on the technology by itself without doing the lobbying, and you cannot do the lobbying without actually showing the lobbyists what you're working on. Yeah. Similar to how the best way to explain how Bitcoin works is by letting people to use it, then they understand how it works. I think the best way to explain how a digital identity can be portable, private, and secure is by actually letting people use it. So there are a couple of use cases we are discovering, and I'm not shy to say we are in a discovery process still.
Of course.
Again, it's a very sensitive matter that we are working with, human data and the human IDs. But at the same time, we're doing equal efforts, and I think we did big efforts in lobbying. We influenced a lot of decision makers in the Netherlands, in the European region, and in the Middle East to look at digital identities, to innovate in the digital identity space, and we inspired them to adapt and adopt digital identity standards like DIDs, like introducing them to the sovereign network, the identity for all. I believe that by combining those two factors, working on your technology, lobbying at the same time, we will reach the results that we want.
The thing that I find about distributed ledger technology as a whole is it's so new that there's so many fields, which is why I wanted to have this interview, because I feel like this is a very unique one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen somebody else work on it or talk about it in that sense. Like, yeah, you have digital IDs for farmers, for example, and allowing them to protect their trading and their crops and everything, but not in this way. So it's such a new technology that we can see glimpses of it solving such huge problems that it is safe to say we could not solve before. Or you tell me if it is safe to say so, because
No, I don't think. I think it's a little bit today overhyped on what DLTs can do. Again, on my personal opinion, I think we don't need DLTs to solve these problems. A simple political decision and allowing refugees to have IDs, to have legal IDs, would solve the problem, and we don't need DLTs. But again, because there is barriers, because these barriers are tough to break, we need to innovate, and we need to innovate without taking permission. So you need to innovate without permission in order to bring humanity forward.
Whose permission?
Permission of, governments, private institutions, public institutions. Your world is driven by permissions and by rules and by regulation. Yes, rules and regulations help us organize our lives and helps us to protect our values and assets and whatever you want to advocate for rules and regulation. But simply a rule like in Lebanon or in Turkey, where you have more than 10 million refugees living, we need to say, yeah, you need to have a legal document to get a SIM card. I don't think personally that is an innovative way of helping those people. And here, then I would say, yes, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and DLTs are needed in breaking this barrier. So me as a Syrian refugee in a Dutch camp, we were treated very well. I always say we had a service that compares to a 7-star hotel when we compare Dutch refugee camps to refugee camps in Greece or in Lebanon or in Jordan. The type of food served was on time, was enough for everyone. We had 3 meals in a day, but those meals did not change. More or less, they were the same every day.
Yeah.
3 slices of bread, 3 slices of cheese. For lunch, you have an egg and a cup of soup, and for dinner, you had some rice with vegetables. So I used Bitcoin to order pizza to the camp, and I used Bitcoin because I couldn't have a bank account, I couldn't have a credit card, and I couldn't have even a PayPal account, since I don't have a home address. So you see how the barrier for me to access a financial service was the lack of a legal identity, and Bitcoin came to break that barrier and give me the economic freedom that I wanted in a simple pizza order. So it is, again, for me, this is what's gonna change the future. Breaking those barriers in innovative solutions. The technologies existed in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. We didn't invent something new. It's how we put it together and how we made it useful for our own benefit, and to break those barriers that are restricting us from being financially included. And even on a further step, those same rules and regulations are causing the financial crisis that are putting millions and hundreds of millions of people in debt and in trouble.
I can't simply ask you for future predictions, but do you see this happening?
Future predictions in what? In
your goal?
In our goal, definitely. Indicators are there. Today, what we call the Tweede Kamer in the Dutch government is raising the voice for a need of a digital identity in the country. The European Union is adopting standardization, blockchain-related projects and blockchain-related directions. Refugees, vulnerable people, data leaks, breaches, hacks is putting more and more pressure on reinventing and redesigning our identity systems. We are looking towards a positive future. But what I say is, don't wait for, sorry for the word, for the shit to happen to find a solution. Be proactive, be preventive, and give at least the people peace of mind and give them the, you know, the humanity that we deserve. Going digital, portable, private, and secure is first step on that road.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being
Thank
here.
you so much.